Here's how Russia lost billions of dollars in rock business with NASA and Elon Musk. Russia's ability to exert influence within NASA and the space industry has diminished in recent years. A week ago, the leader of Russian space agency Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin, stopped supplying and refused to launch the payload of a British satellite company. Rockets from Russia, he issued threats to cease delivering engines to clients in the United States and to cut off relationships with partners working on the International Space Station, including NASA. He also threatened to stop supplying engines to customers in other countries. In terms of space policy, the most delicate issue at the moment is the International Space Station. NASA and Russia have worked together for more than 20 years to create and are currently running a laboratory that is situated 300 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. The United States of America and Russia were the primary topics of discussion in the initial modules. After the lights were turned on inside the space station, the first two persons to enter were a pair of astronauts from the United States and Russia. Robert Cabana, who was in charge of the STS-88 mission, consciously chose to proceed in this path as the mission's commander. The United States is no longer in possession of a spaceship that is capable of transporting its astronauts into space as a result of the cancellation of the Space Shuttle program. Over the course of 9 years and at a total cost of more than $80 million, it started acquiring seats on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. Until NASA's commercial crew program begins to have astronauts launched by SpaceX as part of the program's operations. As a direct result of Elon Musk's company beginning to launch American citizens from Florida in May of 2020, the number of seats that NASA has purchased from Russia has been reduced, and the agency is currently in the process of negotiating the launch of astronauts. When they first began their invasion of Ukraine, they were using a Crew Dragon from SpaceX. Later on in this video, we will give you an update on the most recent information that we have gathered and presented to you. Rogozin issued the threat between the astronaut and his international astronaut that he would completely leave the International Space Station and halt his scientific work in orbit. It is possible that Russian spacecraft will not allow American astronauts to board them. This is a distinct possibility. Roger Handberg, a specialist in space politics at the University of Central Florida, asserts that Russia does not currently hold the advantage it formerly enjoyed. They didn't receive the money because the majority of their space program sold seats for Soyuz missions to the United States, said Handberg, according to what was reported. You are correct in saying that the US has increased its influence to the detriment of the Russians as a direct result of the Russians providing access to their country. They have their own independent access to the material at this point. Mark Van de Hey, a NASA astronaut, will be one of 3 individuals to undock from the International Space Station in the month of April and return to Earth on board a Russian spacecraft that will land in Kazakhstan. The other 2 people on the mission will be Oleg Kononenko and Oleg Skripochka. The Soyuz 2.1B rocket booster will be brought to the launch site in Kazakhstan on March 2, 2022. This booster will be carrying the OneWeb satellite that was developed in the United Kingdom. The photographs from TASS and the Roscosmos press office were provided by Getty Images. Second, the USA, Europe, and Japan are all working toward the goal of increasing the size of their respective economies. It wasn't until 2024 that Russia finally made a promise, but by that point, negotiations were already well underway. In the hypothetical scenario in which Russia leaves the club before the year 2030, this is the time at which things start to become more challenging. Does that suggest that the module needs to be removed after it has been disassembled? This is a question that calls for some reflection and contemplation on your part. Handberg remarked on the current state of affairs, we are not there yet. NASA. Since the United States Space Shuttle program was discontinued, the International Space Station has been dependent on Russian spacecraft to live and move space stations in debris avoidance operations. This has been the case ever since the shuttles were last used. On the other hand, the cargo spaceship Cygnus that Northrop Grumman has created might be able to complete the mission. A Cygnus just arrived at the docking station. It's possible that the US will conduct their first reboost tests in orbit aboard the International Space Station, which would also present more options. If Russia were to decide to take swift action and sever its connections with the other countries that participate in the International Space Station, it is not clear how things would progress from that point onward. There are no plans to separate sections of the International Space Station. Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, which is run by NASA, is slated to be used for a liftoff of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying a NASA Imaging X-ray Polarization Explorer satellite at 1 in the morning on Thursday, December 9, 2021. This launch is scheduled to take place at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. As NASA turns its attention away from the Russians, it is predicted that Elon Musk's SpaceX will make greater contributions to the American space program. There are many factors that are intertwined with one another. Therefore, the Russian modules that were once permitted to be utilized on the space station will not be permitted going forward, right? Or vice versa, Hanberg remarked, "I am saying." It seems very weird when one considers the limits that they are working within. Hanberg claims that the Russian astronauts will remain on board the ISS until the year 2024. Nevertheless, there is always an element of uncertainty with Putin. Russia's ability to exert influence within NASA and the space industry has diminished in recent years. Now, as promised, I will provide the most recent updates on the continuing fight, which are as follows. It was announced on Saturday by the White House that President Joe Biden had a phone conversation with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to discuss ongoing actions undertaken by the US, its allies and partners, and private industry to raise the cost on Russia for its aggression in Ukraine. According to the White House, during the approximately 30-minute phone conversation, Zelensky voiced his support for the announcement that Visa and MasterCard made on the suspicion of their services in Russia. According to the White House, Biden noted his administration is surging security, humanitarian, and economic assistance to Ukraine and is working closely with Congress to secure additional funding. Biden's comments were made in reference to the Obama administration's efforts to secure additional funding. A horrifying attack carried out earlier in the week by Russian soldiers on a nuclear power station located in Ukraine was also brought up during the conversation between the two parties. Following the incident, great worry was raised regarding the potential for a nuclear calamity because the building in question had taken fire. According to reports coming from the White House, President Biden sent his congratulations to the plant operators who had been responsible for ensuring the reactor's safety. In order to defend Ukraine from Russian aerial assaults, Zelensky has repeatedly advocated for the establishment of a no-fly zone over the country's territory by NATO and Western politicians. On Saturday, he made the announcement during a phone discussion with senators from the United States. Because they are concerned that establishing the zone could make the war worse, the leaders of the Western nations have been proceeding with extreme caution. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, has stated that establishing a no-fly zone would be equivalent to declaring war on the country. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to hit like and subscribe to this channel for more information.